Good morning. On this beautiful, yes, rainy day after Earth Day. We need the rain. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Stony Brook. Welcome to you who are here in our sanctuary, and welcome to all who are attending virtually. My name is Carol Castillo, and I am happy to serve as your worship associate this morning, co-leading our service with Irma Solis. Our interim minister is the Reverend Dr. Madeline Campbell, who will be back in the pulpit in 2 weeks, and our Director of Religious Education is Deb Little. I'd like to offer a special welcome to anyone who is visiting today or is new to our fellowship. And I hope that you'll find among us inspiration for living and nourishment for your spirit. Unitarian Universalism, as a living tradition, has two commitments: freedom of belief and an orientation towards inclusion, interdependence, and justice. You can find additional information about the principles we strive to live by on our webpage at UUFSB.org. Please stay following the service and join us as our guests for coffee hour here in the sanctuary, or online, you can join a small group chat. You sign off and then you sign back in. Today there is an important meeting though, so there may be an interruption in that flow. And we'll talk more about that in a second in the announcements. And in either place, coffee hour, group chats, you're going to find friendly people who can answer questions that you might have about us. So I have just two announcements this morning. Today, following the service and a brief get your coffee for coffee hour, we're going to return to the seats here. The General Assembly delegates are hosting an important town hall meeting to discuss the proposed changes to Article 2 of the UUA bylaws, which contain our 7 principles and our 6 sources. The proposed changes will be put to a vote at the General Assembly in June. It's an historic endeavor, and our delegates need your feedback, so please plan to attend. If you're online, sign out from the service, and there is a link to join that town hall meeting in yesterday's newsfeed. The youth group is leading a food drive as part of their service next Sunday, April 30th. Please take a copy of the suggested donations from your seat and bring one or more of the items to the service next week. And again, for those of you online, there will be a link in the chat if you would like to get a copy of that list. Thank you. There are many worthwhile and enriching activities going on around here, so please, please be sure to check the printed announcements and the weekly news feed so that you don't miss out. Finally, please take a moment to be sure that you've silenced your phones and other devices. Let us enter into the sacred space and time of worship with the sounding of the morning bell. I've asked Ted Masters to come forward to light our chalice this morning. For those attending the service virtually, I invite you to light a chalice or candle at your home or wherever you are, as we light one here in the sanctuary. The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. We kindle the flame of our faith in the cup of our covenant. With these words from Timothy Snyder, found on the worship web. Life is political, not because the world cares about how you feel, but because the world reacts to what you do. The minor choices we make are themselves a kind of vote, making it more or less likely that free and fair elections will be held in the future. In the politics of the everyday, our words and gestures, or their absence, count very much. The symbols of today enable the reality of tomorrow. And I would invite Shelley Pisaris to come up and take home the traveling chalice. And now it's time for our tale for all ages. Deb Little. And is Deb in the back? Okay. What I'll do is I'll do our land acknowledgement first while we're waiting for Deb. This morning, while we contemplate the chronic fear that many immigrant New Yorkers experience in their daily lives, we take a moment to acknowledge the truth about the land we stand on here in our fellowship home. The congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Stony Brook honors the indigenous people whose traditional and ancestral land included the acres we claim as ours today. We recognize the Suffolk people from whom this territory was stolen incrementally through grossly inequitable, opaque, and duplicitous exchanges between 1655 and 1662. Their descendants live on today as the Suffolk Nation. Among them are neighbors residing in Setauket's Bethel Christian Avenue Laurel Hill Historic District. We acknowledge the ancestors and survivors of this place and realize that we are here because of the sacrifices forced upon them. We honor their legacy, their lives, and their descendants who carry on tribal traditions for present and future generations. And now, Deb Little with the Tale for All Ages.
Thank you for your patience. I have this fantasy, I've had it for at least 15 years, that every clock in a building would have the correct time. The clock in the RE room is 7 minutes behind, so hence the delay. Thank you very much. Good morning, my beloveds. Our time for all ages today comes from a book called Mama's Nightingale. It was written by Edwidge Danticat. The author herself experienced parental separation as a child. Her mom and dad lived in the US, while she and her brother lived in Haiti with an aunt and uncle. Her parents could not bring the children to the US because they did not have the papers needed to bring their children here. And I know you're going to be hearing a lot today about papers. So here is our story. When Mama first goes away, what I miss most is the sound of her voice. At night, while Papa's asleep, I sneak out of bed to listen to Mama's voice on our answering machine. "Please leave good news," she says. Good morning. One night, I accidentally erase the greeting, and I can no longer hear Mama say those cheerful words. We have no good news. For the last 3 months, Mama's been at Sunshine Correctional, a prison for women without papers. When I ask Papa, what kind of papers does Mama need? He says, papers that say she belongs in this country. Can Mama have my papers, I ask? She can't. Every night after Papa makes dinner and helps me with my homework, Papa sits at the kitchen table and writes letters to the judges who send people without papers to jail. He also writes to our mayor and to our congressional representative and the newspapers, but no one ever writes back. Papa and I visit Mama every week. When she sees me, she runs to me and hugs me. "I miss you, Wosiol," she says. In Mama's Haitian stories, a Wosiol is a beautiful nightingale that sings wonderful songs and loves to eat a fruit called soursap. Mama hums the Wosiol's song in my ear. Then she asks me about school and if Papa and I are taking care of each other. "Gotta go, folks," says a guard when it's time to take Mama away. I scream and beg to stay with her. Tears run down Mama's face. The guard tells Papa not to bring me if I cannot behave. A few days later, a package arrives in the mail. There is a letter for Papa and a cassette with a card that says, "A bedtime story for Sana." That night, Papa tucks me in and puts an old cassette player by the bed. He pushes play and tiptoes out of the room. Suddenly, Mama's chime-filled voice fills the room. She sings a Wossio melody and then tells me a nightingale story that she made up. The next time we visit Mama, I do my best not to cry. I hug her and kiss her face. I don't ask her when she is coming home because she doesn't know. After that visit, a new tape with a new story arrives for me every week. One night I sit next to Papa while he writes one of his long letters. We listen to Mama's voice together. "Papa," I say when the room is quiet, "can I write letters too?" "Of course," he says, "you can write your own story." I take Papa's advice and write my own story. When I'm done, Papa sends my story to one of the newspaper reporters he's been writing to. A few days later, there is a message on our machine from a lady reporter. The newspaper wants to print my story. Then, and after that, another reporter comes to the house to interview Papa and me for the television. I tell her how much I miss Mama and want to be with her again. Papa tells her how Mama was arrested by the immigration police while she was working in a restaurant. We are scared that she'll be sent back to Haiti. Mama came to the U.S. before she met Papa and before I was born, and she doesn't have the right papers. In a few weeks, because of all the phone calls and letters from people who read my story, Mama is brought before an immigration judge. And the judge decides that Mama can come home while she is waiting for the immigration decision. Finally, Mama is home with us again. May all separated families be reunited. Amen. So I see some recent visitors and new visitors, and I want to invite all of the children to go back to our RE class. Where are my teachers? There's one, there's two, okay, and there's three. So the kids are doing something really cool today. They're making sculptures. So please follow Amy and April and Carrie and go on back, and we will see you all. And could everyone sing the children out with the re-benediction, which is found on the last page of your hymnal. Thank you.
Our speaker this morning, Irma Solis, is the director of the Suffolk Regional Office at the New York Civil Liberties Union, where she organizes legal, educational, and community outreach in Suffolk County on issues ranging from police accountability to education reform. Irma has more than 20 years of experience leading campaigns to address issues affecting communities in upstate New York, Brooklyn, and Long Island. These include racially targeted housing code enforcement activities in the town of Brookhaven, wage theft by unscrupulous employers, violations of the Fair Housing Act, day laborers' right to seek work in public spaces, Latino students' right to public education, and discriminatory practices by the Suffolk County Police. Irma has worked for New York State Attorney General's Consumer Frauds Bureau, Central American Legal Assistance, Workplace Project, and Long Island Housing Services. She has consulted for Latino Justice and other social justice organizations as community organizer and trainer with a focus on social and racial justice, leadership, and organizational development. Irma received her law degree from University at Buffalo School of Law and her BA from Binghamton University. Irma, her husband Filiberto, Ethan, and Cece have been members of UUFSB for a number of years. When I met with Irma recently to work on the service, she told me that what attracted her to join our congregation was that she had not previously known a religion that was so rooted in action. I can definitely relate to that feeling in reflecting how I came to become a UU, and I know that so many of you share that sense as well. Irma will talk to us about specific legislation that is pending in New York State. I'm pleased and honored to welcome her as our service leader today, and I'm looking forward to the reflections that she will share with us this morning.
Sorry I'm late. I know how long you've had to wait. I did not forget your documents. No time to waste. Why not begin? So here's how it works. I've got these faces, you give them names and I won't deport you. Make sure you face my tape recorder. Make no mistake, this fountain pen could put you on a plane by 10. And by the way, you're next of kin. I know which house she's hiding in. So now that you know whose skin you're saving, in this photograph, who's this one waving? I think you know, so speak up, amigo. And it says here that by trade you were a fisherman. Well, I'll bet you Indians could really reel 'em in. And if you get the chance, you should try to get up to Lake Michigan. Well, maybe, but then again, anyway. Where were we then? Is he your friend? I'd recommend you look again. Where does he stay? And what's his name? There is no shame, he'd do the same. So what do you say? I don't have all day. It's up to you. Which will it be? Good citizen or poor campesino? And my dad used to rent us this place in Ontario. He showed us how to cast the line and tie the flies. And he used to say that God rewards us for letting the small ones go. Maybe, but I don't know. Anyway, it's easy to bite, just take the bait. You can't snap the line, so don't fight the hook. It hurts less if you don't try to dive. Senor, as you know, I was a fisherman. How full the nets came in, we hauled them up by hand. And when we fled, I left them just out past the coral reef. They're waiting there for me, running deep.
I was arrested in Troy, New York for doing a rolling stop through a stop sign. And the police officer who arrested me decided that he was going to inquire about my immigration status. I was held at the Troy precinct overnight on a traffic violation. He proceeded to call ICE, several times and got nowhere and continued to call until they issued a warrant for my arrest. So I was held, I was brought in front of a judge in Troy and ROA'd, released on my own recognizance, and they still proceeded to hold me for ICE officials as they weren't there yet after I was ROA'd. This led to me being detained in the facility in Buffalo, the ICE detention facility. I was there for 2.5 months, almost 3 months. I have 2 minor children. At the time, they were 9 and 11, and they were shuffled from house to house. Family members and friends basically cared for them in that 2.5 months that I was detained. We really didn't know what the future held because I was facing potential deportation. Things were uncertain what would happen. I eventually went on to win my case in immigration court and was granted my green card in 2019. If the New York for All Act had been in place that day in 2018, things would have been very different. No police prying into my immigration status, where they honestly don't have any business prying into it. They wouldn't have been able to call ICE, and I likely would not have been detained for those 2.5 months away from my kids. I think it caused them to have some PTSD of being away from me. Families shouldn't be ripped apart like this. I think back every day to how I lived my life in the shadows for so long and so many years. I just think it's imperative that this act gets passed so that everyone can live equally. They can go about their everyday lives. They can go to work. They can care for their kids. I definitely implore people to get this passed sooner than later.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your invitation to share with you all. Like Delilah, 3 farm laborers were on their way to pick family members who were also farm laborers when they were pulled over by Border Patrol and now face deportation. These 3 farm laborers didn't come home to their kids. For years, some of our leaders have used ICE to divide us, determined to cruelly target, demonize, and demoralize immigrants and separate families like Delilah's. ICE raids and scare tactics have cruelly separated families, and ICE has leaned on local law enforcement and government agencies to aid their arrests, deportations, and family separation. In recent years, ICE and Customs Enforcement and Border Protection has depended heavily on the use of state and local enforcement to assist in their search, arrest, and deportation of New Yorkers. Over the past 20 years, the number of individuals in immigration detention was 8,000 people in 1995, which ballooned to over an average of 56,000 people in the system in 2019. This has developed through several points of collusion between federal and local authorities. This collusion instills distrust in government that forces immigrants into the shadows, preventing them from accessing vital services and reporting crimes. Because of this, many immigrant New Yorkers and their families live with the anxiety that living daily life in open and interacting with government, whether in a police traffic stop, attending school, or visiting a public hospital for care, could lead to being torn away from family. This fear has been especially damaging during COVID-19 pandemic, pushing key communities away from the help they need to protect themselves and neighboring New Yorkers. When local agencies work with ICE, it leads not only to unconstitutional racial profiling, but also to the misuse of our local tax dollars and resources to serve the agenda of those who want to stoke fear and divide us. We now come to the part of our service where we take some moments for meditation. Carol and I will read for you a short piece called Siete Principios, bueno, más el primero, by Reverend Teresa Ninan Soto, a UU minister and activist. This piece is included in Spilling the Light, Meditations on Hope and Resilience, published by Skinner House Books. Following the reading, we will share a minute of silent meditation, and then Bethany will bring us back out of silence with hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. If you're not familiar with it, you may wish to open your hymnal to that page before we begin. El valor y la dignidad de cada persona. Imagina que llegó el día en que dejamos de tasar a las personas como si fueran casas o montones de recursos.
The worth and dignity of every person. Imagine that the day arrived in which we left behind valuations of people as though they were houses or bundles of resources.
Personas siempre poseídas del conocimiento de que siempre son alguien, nunca nadie.
Persons always possessed of the knowledge that they are always somebody, never nobody.
De que el color de la piel, las fuentes del lenguaje, la distancia del hogar no define a quién merece la pena de nuestro apoyo, nuestro cariño y el sentido de pertenecer a esta comunidad. En este momento, con estas posibilidades.
That skin color, sources of language, or distance from home doesn't define who is worthy of our support, our caring, and the sense of belonging in this community, in this moment, with these possibilities.
Este momento se siente peligroso. hay algo que se resiste a todas las dignidades que no son las de la gente blanca, algo que lastima y pone en riesgo la vida de los demás.
This moment feels dangerous. There is something that resists all the dignities that are not those of white folks, damaging, risking the rest of the lives.
¿Cómo responderemos? ¿Cuál es la respuesta? ¿Qué inspira el primer principio?
How shall we respond? What is there for an answer? What does the first principle itself inspire?
Levantémonos en contra de todo poder injusto, en contra del ejercicio del poder sin límite ni ética.
Let us rise against every unjust power, against the exercise of power without limits or ethics.
Es hora de imaginar un día diferente, una conexión innegable con el universo entero, libertad en abundancia y paz en cada corazón.
It's time to imagine a different day, an undeniable connection to the entire universe, freedom in abundance and peace in every heart. It is our spiritual practice to share our offering plate 50-50 with a deserving social justice recipient. Our shared plate recipient for the month of April is BLARG, the Brookhaven Landfill Action and Remediation Group. In 2020, individuals who were part of Black Lives Matter activism locally came together to form this environmental justice group. Their goal is to ensure the closing and cleanup of the Brookhaven landfill. The group has rallied public opposition to a town proposal for a second ash fill that would have essentially extended the use of the landfill beyond the scheduled closure date in 2024. Our previous support of the group's efforts enabled them to start a successful community composting project. Please give with generosity in support of this worthwhile local initiative. You may make your gifts in the plate or online. For those online, the link to donate is in the chat box. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Eva pasando el trapo sobre la mesa y está cuidando que todo brille como una perla. Cuando llegue la patrona, que no se vuelva a quejar. No sea cosa que la acuse de ilegal. José atiende los jardines, parecen de Disneyland. Maneja una troca vieja sin la licencia. No importa si fue taxista allá en su tierra natal. Eso no cuenta para el tío Sam. El hielo anda suelto por esas calles. Nunca se sabe cuándo nos va a tocar. Lloran los niños, lloran a la salida. Lloran al ver que no llegará mamá. Uno se queda aquí, otro se queda allá. Eso pasa por salir a trabajar. Marta llegó de niña y sueña con estudiar, pero se le hace difícil sin los papeles. Se quedan con los laureles los que nacieron acá, pero ella nunca deja de luchar. El hielo anda suelto por esas calles. Nunca se sabe cuándo nos va a tocar. Lloran los niños, lloran a la salida. Lloran al ver que no llegará mamá. Uno se queda aquí, otro se queda allá. Eso pasar por salir a trabajar. Uno se queda aquí, otro se queda allá. Eso pasa por salir a trabajar.
Thank you. Scapegoating and targeting immigrant communities for arrest and deportation is both wrong and costly. We need our leaders to focus on creating a path to citizenship, not enabling ICE cruelty. Where Washington has failed to take action, and until they do, Albany can take the lead in keeping New York out of ICE's cruelty and keeping all New Yorkers safe. The New York for All Act broadly prohibits state and local officers from enforcing federal immigration laws, funneling people into ICE custody, and sharing sensitive information with federal immigration authorities. It prohibits ICE and CBP from entering non-public areas of state and local property without a judicial warrant. Additionally, this legislation would prohibit localities and state agencies from entering into 287G agreements, which deputizes local law enforcement to enforce federal immigration laws and provides them with training from ICE. We have several counties that do have these agreements in New York State. This bill would also ensure ICE cannot access local facilities without the use of a judicial warrant. Lastly, this legislation would ensure the local jails inform people of their rights when interacting with ICE, especially their ability to decline an interview and seek assistance of counsel. This is something that several from this congregation, like Peggy Ford and Deb Little, have been working to really raise awareness of the sheriff's practice to actually bring someone to an interview room who was in detention in the local jails, bring them to an interview room without letting them know that they would be speaking with an ICE agent. And this law would actually prohibit that. And lastly, it also starts the process of limiting ICE and CBP access to state information databases. The New York for All Act will help immigrant New Yorkers lead freer lives and take care of family, preserves state and local resources for our communities, and ensures New York dollars cannot be diverted to carry out a cruel, politicized immigration agenda.
When holding your breath is safer than breathing, when letting go is braver than keeping, when innocent words turn to lies and you can't hide by closing your eyes, when pain is all that they offer, like a kiss from the lips of a monster. You know the famine so well, but never met the feast. When home is the belly of a beast, the ocean is wild and over your head, and the boat beneath you is sinking. Don't need room for your bags, hope is all that you have. So say the Lord's Prayer twice, hold your babies tight. Surely someone will reach out a hand and show you a safe place to land. Oh, imagine yourself in a building that's up in flames, being told to stand still. the window's wide open, this leap is on faith. You don't know who will catch you, but maybe somebody will. The ocean is wild and over your head, and the boat beneath you is sinking. You don't need room for your bags, hope is all that you have. So say the Lord's Prayer twice, hold your babies tight. Surely someone will reach out a hand and show you a safe place to land. Be the hand of a hopeful stranger, a little scared but you're strong enough. Be the light in the dark of this danger till the sun comes up. Be the hand of a hopeful stranger, a little scared but you're strong enough. Be the light in the dark of this danger till the sun comes up. Be the hand of a hopeful stranger, a little scared but you're strong enough. Be the light in the dark of this danger until the sun comes up. Till 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 the sun comes up.
Beautiful, thank you. Why we need New York for All and your support. We need New York for All because communities that refuse to conspire with ICE are safer. Since its founding in 2003, ICE has acted with impunity, using lies, deception, and excessive force to storm their way into our homes and disappear. Our loved ones and community members. I can't stress enough that while it is true that the Trump administration may be over, its legacy of targeting immigrant communities continues. No one should have to fear that calling the police or emergency services may bring ICE to their door. When people are too scared to call for help or trust their neighbors and communities, we are all less safe. We need New York for All Act because local policies that protect immigrants from ICE have economic benefits for all. The pandemic highlighted how much we all depend on each other. And by protecting all workers, we can ensure New York State's recovery. When residents trust local officials, they participate more in the economy. We need the New York for All Act because other states have passed legislation to keep resources out of federal immigration enforcement. And these states are doing okay. New York should follow other states who recognize the importance of protecting immigrant residents. New Jersey, Washington, and California already have statewide policies or legislation, and New York City and other local jurisdictions have already passed strong citywide policies to keep police and other agencies out of ICE's agenda. We need the New York for All Act because immigrant communities deserve respect and a chance to pursue citizenship without fear. ICE raids instill fear in immigrant families who courageously endured significant hardship to build better lives here. We need to make sure divisive politics don't continue to create mistrust and fear. Immigrant communities continue to wait for our leaders to develop a reasonable roadmap to citizenship. They had to wait too long, and the process is too broken. We need to take steps to ensure New York works for all, now. My family and I need the New York for All Act because we no longer want to live in fear that our loved ones will be taken from us at any moment. So we need your support to help us get the New York for All Act passed, and we cannot get it passed without you. I invite each of you to visit our website, where you could find a link to contact your representatives to urge them to vote to pass the New York for All Act. I also invite you to join me and numerous of immigrant communities, members of the immigrant communities from Suffolk and throughout the state, as we make our way to Albany on Tuesday to urge our senators and assembly members to support the New York for All Act this session. We also invite you to fill out one of these postcards that I believe were handed out earlier, urging Governor Hochul to sign the New York for All Act into law once it reaches her desk. And again, like the song by Santa Cecilia, ICE is loose over the streets. We never know when it will touch us, my loved ones. They cry, the children cry at the doorway. They cry when they see that their mother, that their father will not come back. So please support us in passing this legislation. Thank you. If you could join me in the closing prayer. Spirit of justice, help us be courageous and committed in these times. Let us transform our ideals into action, our words into deeds. Let the fire of our passion burn with both light and warmth. In our anger, help us embody the spirit of creative destruction, always making room for more justice, more compassion, more love. May it be so. May be ones that make it so. Amen.
We're going to close this morning with me inviting all to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn number 318, We Would Be One. On her blog, Notes from the Far Fringe, UU minister Kimberly Debus tells us that this hymn is, oh, I'm sorry, I was supposed to extinguish the chalice and ring the bell first, but I'll finish my words, and then I'll do that, and then we'll sing, sorry. Kimberly Debus tells us about this hymn. It's a call to keep showing up, a call to work, to learn, to listen, to pray, to sing, and a call to love. Because love is a verb. Love calls us to act. Love calls us to build for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today.